All right, welcome to the Principia podcast, episode number 5. I'm joined with Jake O'Reilly and Dwayne O'Reilly, the father-son combo. We actually already shot this, and we had some technical difficulties, so you're going to probably just jump in partway through, and I hope you guys can enjoy the content, even if it doesn't feel like everything's super fluid. If it doesn't, we'll repeat the podcast, but... Yeah, we definitely had some technical issues. We lost some of the first part of it. So enjoy what we got. I think there's still lots of nuggets in there for you guys.
It's all right. We'll just focus on what we can control.
That's right.
That's right.
Awesome. How long were you doing CrossFit before I bought it? How long were you at that gym before I bought the gym?
I think it was about a month, probably.
Before you bought it.
Well, that wasn't before I bought it. That was before
you bought it in April.
Before I was coaching classes.
Oh, we moved in May.
So it was probably a few months. It was probably 4 to 5 months. But it was a transition where I was starting to coach more classes and stuff.
Right.
So I was kind of transitioning over into the ownership.
Right.
But didn't officially own it until April the next year.
Yeah, but that was a huge change from
what was
the previous ownership to the new.
And one of the main reasons I'm highlighting that is because now on day one, my goal is not to get you to feel like you were feeling.
Right. Yeah.
Which you might have liked that, right? But most of the time, people are
that might be a turn off for people.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, the onboarding process as and I've been there long enough to see it all.
Yeah.
So
we've messed with our process a lot.
Well, you have
trying to dial it in. We're still changing it all the time. We're always going to be adapting to not only what the fitness industry, but what the science provides. We're always going to be adapting to that. We're never going to become set in our ways, so to speak. So I just want to make sure that the people listening do understand that the first day of CrossFit
isn't
like that anymore. Not for us. So if you want that experience, you're welcome to try a different gym. But we are much more guarded of people, and we want to make sure that people are getting the quality right out the gate and not going for the intensity right out the gate.
Well, and then to go to the injury, like everyone's, I'm afraid of CrossFit, I'm going to get injured. Well, it's like that doesn't do you any good to get anybody hurt.
Oh, no.
It doesn't bring anybody back. It doesn't give
if you move at a rate that your musculoskeletal system cannot keep up with, it's only a matter of time.
Yep.
Yeah. And it is only a matter of time, but that time is different for everybody. And some people can go for a good year before anything happens.
Right.
So they don't think it's any of that stuff. But it's like, actually, no, you just did way too much training at a rate of intensity, at a speed that your musculoskeletal system wasn't also adapting to.
Right.
Because you were going too fast. Right. So there needs to be this like blend of slow and fast movements and learning the mechanics of the movements before we dive into the intensity of the movement. And a lot of times people see CrossFit for the intensity, so they try to start with the intensity.
Right.
And it's not where it starts. And so I guess I was just trying to make that really clear to the listeners that you didn't start with me directly, and we're not going to crush you on the first day.
No.
So,
or the second.
Yeah, it's really a process, and it is built by science quite a bit now, more so than it was when we first opened, for sure.
Yeah.
As we've adapted, we've definitely gotten to learn kind of the science of the rate that people can learn at, what previous injuries are leading to things. So Jake's actually a coach with us now, and he could kind of tell us a little bit more about like, what do you see us doing in our on-ramp that you find valuable? As a coach, from the coach's perspective.
Yeah, that's a good question. The thing I find most valuable about the on-ramp process now is it gives people a opportunity to be brought alongside a trainer who knows what they're doing and can learn the process and can make sure that movement is good. They can get checked in on a variety of different things, from nutrition to sleep. That way, once they join classes, they've got such a firm foundation to build off of.
Yeah.
Where before, the common model seemed to be where you'd kind of just jump in and
we would scale.
Yeah, you'd scale it, but you didn't quite. Maybe I've never done a snatch before, So now with our on-ramp process, you're getting a lot more individual time, and that time pays off dividends down the road
Mm-hmm.
by just helping you build a really strong foundation now.
Absolutely. And longevity in the sport. Be specific here. So because you're a coach and you are in on the specific parts of our on-ramp, and you talk about getting the movement down, how do we go about getting the movement down? Where does it all start?
Yeah, so from day one, we're breaking down movements and making sure that you can go through them well. From there,
Do we just start making them do movements, or do we take them through an assessment to determine things? Right.
So starting off, flexibility and mobility assessment is paramount. It's one of the first things that we do. So checking to make sure range of motion and mobility of joints is there.
Why is that so important?
Just making sure that, one, if you can even do the movement or have any business doing it at all. It also gives us a really good framework of what we can work on going forward. So, for instance, I've had clients where, let's say they're at school, they're working out at school, talk about how they just had a workout with squats. Awesome. You know how to squat. Let's see it. And it's like, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Let's take a step back. Let's throw a box under here. Okay. So for the next foreseeable future, whenever you're in those classes, let's make sure that we're only squatting to this step, because we see a glaring risk for injury, and we need to make sure that we're building those neurological connections of him doing it correctly and not having him continue him doing it poorly, and strengthening those connections.
And you're talking specifically about a kid who's in high school, so not a college, not working out at the school at college, working out at the school in high school, where it's actually a class. He's getting credit for it. Yeah. And I've heard the stories now. In those classes, it's basically just like, today's leg day. You guys are going to go do this. And there's no like supervision or teaching. It's kind of just do it. And they're with their friends. And I don't know if you know kids at that age, they're just adding weight as much as possible every time. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. And he recently told me yesterday that they started off, the coach basically gave him the workout, and the prescription was to start squatting at 80%. There's no warm up. It was you start at 80%.
And you clarified that he didn't want to warm up. He just wanted you to throw 80% on the bar and go.
Yeah. And then he told me about his friend who has squatted like 395. So his 80% was in the 300s. Yeah. And he went for his first rep and collapsed under the weight.
Shocking.
And it caught on the guards. Thank God those were there. Yeah. I mean, then that's not to knock any coaches in a school system, but from my understanding, oftentimes there can be more of a teacher situation who becomes. Yeah.
So the way that those coaches are hired is they have to be a teacher.
Right.
They can't be a coach first and then a teacher second. In our space, we are coaches first, right? So. Right. Our goal is to get people moving correctly. If we were to get hired at a school, we were coaches first, and we know that, right?
Right.
So it's not that, I mean, it's ignorant to some degree. If I'm going to knock him, it's absolutely ignorant to some degree to think that this kid could throw 300 pounds on a bar and then just start moving. And it does need to be addressed. To me, it's one of the biggest issues, and it's one of the things that in the future, I want to make sure that I can get my hands on some of the things, and I'm still trying to devise a plan for how I could be a part of that. I don't know if it's whether I got to be a politician or what, but they absolutely are putting kids through the ringer. And the only reason I'm going to highlight this is because kids are going through high school, and some of them are lucky enough to go into a college sport, and then they come out of a college sport with an identity that they're an athlete, but they're broken down as hell. They need surgeries. They almost can't move. That's when the serious weight gain starts to happen. The mental spiral takes place. So where did it go wrong? It was in high school, in my opinion. Right. They didn't build them at the rate at which a growing body should be built at. Right. They didn't build a foundation before adding the weight. So I'm pretty passionate about that being a major issue, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you will, because how many knee surgeries have you had?
Yeah, I've had 7 now, and I had 6 before I was... by 19, I had 6.
By 19, you had 6. So most of the problems you were having started in high school,
junior high and
high school. What are you? I mean, if you had to like kind of relive that experience, what do you think attributed to a lot of the knee problems?
I think that really I didn't have a lot of foundation to build off of. So one thing I think that's really important that we don't really get taught is you kind of just like when, for instance, my first ones were in football. Well, a lot of football is running, but no one ever teaches you how to run. They're teaching you how to play football.
Yeah.
So they're having different strengths in legs. So just having that difference of strength and just living in that space. So going back, if I could go back, which with that in mind, really just shows how important it is and the obligation that we have to help these people who
we have this knowledge, which is
in.
power.
Yeah, exactly. And if I could save somebody from having that many surgeries, then I'm going to do whatever I can to do that. So those things, balance issue, all things that don't get addressed in high school unless you were to come to somebody like us.
And even then it's I find it really tough even when we do get that opportunity, because they are still going to leave you, go work out with their friends at the school and trash themselves there, and then come back to you with complaints about their knee pain and stuff. And it's like, well, I don't have as much control over your fitness regimen as I'd like.
Yeah.
And so it becomes difficult to start having those conversations, and getting involved with the parents is sometimes difficult as well. So
yeah, those are really important. That's a conversation that I had with the young man we were talking about earlier. Is I'd really only like you to squat this deep. Okay, the box at this height. Do you have something at school that is this height? You do. Okay. I was like, here's the real challenge. When your friends are all squatting, I'd like you to use this box to squat, and that be your depth. Like, that's where the biggest challenge is going to come in. Okay, they're going to try to push you. And I said, if your coach at school says anything about it, I want you to give him my phone number and tell him to call me as soon as he needs. I'm like, I will have a conversation with him.
We'll absolutely challenge that coach.
Yeah.
100%.
And just to have a conversation with him about what's going on. And, these guys don't have bad intentions or anything.
Absolutely not.
Just to have that conversation, I think would be healthy. But, yeah, that's the hard part for for guys like that.
I know we went down a rabbit hole, but I felt like it was a necessary rabbit hole, and I needed to get it off my chest.
No, it's good. And I mean, that's just
struggle.
the space that we're in right now. That's a place I'm actually currently going through.
Yeah.
And with this young man. So it's all places that we're
it's relevant to me and you.
others.
It's not to drink too much. Maybe we get back on track. Are you texting? Is that what all right. So is there a moment that you guys realized that what you've been experiencing at CrossFit was fixing the problems that you were having? Like, is there a moment for you, Dwayne, where the back issues were starting to become like more of a focus, where you're like, oh, maybe this is the issue? Or is there any moment in time where you felt like that?
Well, the moment I started noticing CrossFit was doing something for me physically was you're physically going to notice it. 2 to 4 weeks into it, you're physically going to see it, and then you're going to start doing things. I did things that were my normal everyday stuff. Like I was snowshoeing with my friend, and we were climbing up this mountain, and I was just like, I was hoofing it, man.
I think
I was just like, I was just like killing it. I was like, whoa, this is. But my back issues, as you know, have not really started to resolve themselves until recently. I think that recently we really we really found out probably what my issue was, and that took a little bit to get to, that kind
so I know I can already know what you're alluding to. So what was the first step in how we started uncovering more specifically what we can do to help with the back issue?
Is that probably the class we had, that
the workshop
class? Yeah, okay. The workshop class we had, where it's like you start identifying these things that when you can't bend over and touch your toes, that's an issue. When you have this I was pretty good on all my flexibility things. So the first assessment, the weekend that we had, was really the flexibility came out. That was the big one. And then the one-on-one training when we did the leg strength test, and it was like, whoa,
Let's get back to that in a second. What Dwayne just mentioned, though, was not being able to touch your toes being a problem. And I want to bring some clarity around that. As a coach, I don't believe that not being able to touch your toes is a problem, but if you want to be active in some of those end ranges of hinging, absolutely become an issue. Right? If you want that to be your lifestyle, it's going to be tough, right? And if you want more capacity from that posterior chain and you can't touch your toes, you're probably in a bad position, right? You're in a deficit
Yeah.
so to speak, right?
Right.
Where your risk for injury, your risk for a flare up, you're throwing your back out or whatever is higher now.
Yep.
Right. So that was just one of our tests that we do, that we can identify like what movements we need to modify, what movements we need to stay away from.
Right.
And okay, so that clarifies that. Now you were talking about the one-on-one session that we did. What was the one test? I already know the test, but I want you to describe what was the test and what did you feel and see afterwards?
So it was a box step up where we had just a 45-pound bar racked on the front and step up onto a 24-inch box, right leg first, and then as many reps as I could with my right leg up on the box and lift my left leg up. How many reps I could do, and then we did the same thing with I think we started with my left leg because it was the weaker leg.
Yeah, we started with
the weaker leg.
We usually start with the perceived weaker leg.
Right.
And you were using a 45-pound bar resting on your shoulders in the front of your body.
Right.
The reason you were using 45 is because that's the weight we determined.
Right. We went through kind of a thing and thought we would be
right.
that. Well, we were trying to get a certain rep range. I believe with my.
It's not where
leg.
Everybody starts. It's just where you start.
Yeah, I mean, you could literally probably start with no bar, and it would have been. I'm sure the results would have been the same, but at a little bit higher number, but not substantially.
Okay. So what were the results?
So the results on my left leg were about 8 reps. So I was like, oh, that's not terrible, but
yeah.
So anyway,
we were expecting to get between like 5 and 12.
Yeah.
And you're like,
so
8 reps, perfect.
I mean, I'm at 8. So then on my right leg, it was just like 8, 16. I think I got to 23 or 24. He kind of told me to stop. So it was like this. Wow, it's like this leg is
same weight,
substantially stronger than my other leg. So
what
I
mean?
eye-opening
So the way
experience.
I describe that is like, okay, if one leg's so much stronger than the other, and we're doing things like wall balls, back squats, deadlifts, things like that, where both hips need to be doing the same amount of work to effectively do the movement safely.
Yeah.
How safe is it going to be if one leg is just being used?
Yeah.
And not by intention, and sometimes not even by perception. Like as a coach,
I would have never.
I have a similar imbalance in my leg strength. But when I videotape my squats from all the angles, you don't see a difference in leg strength. But I certainly feel it.
Yeah.
And it certainly shows on my step-ups. So it was one of those things where it's just a way that we paint an obvious picture for somebody to be like, maybe this is all you have to do is fix this imbalance in the leg strength.
Yeah.
And now we can start reintroducing those other movements at a rate that's good for you, not bad for you or dangerous or scary, or we're not going to go back to what you were using. Right. We're going to start over and make sure that you're progress into it in a safe manner that you can feel confident at too.
Yeah.
And at, as you're aging especially, but not even just aging, but like when you really put your goals into perspective, you don't need to put so much weight on a freaking back squat.
Right.
Yeah. Like, or front squat for that matter. So it's like, what's more important to you, how heavy you can lift or how well you can please your wife. Right.
How well you can move,
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like there's what's more important.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when you really put things into perspective for people, they're gonna hesitate to answer because they know the wrong answer is more weight on the bar.
Yeah.
But they know that and they don't want to admit it. Right. And I find myself resisting that too. Be like, no, I want that back squat. But I can get a lot of the same results from back squatting in just a step up. Just add weight. It's significantly less weight. It's significantly less wear and tear on my bone structures. Right. And it's really making sure that there's a balance across my hip because both legs have to work independently.
And a lot of people have experienced some sort of an injury with their other leg, so they kind of can identify where it came from. I have no clue where mine came from to be that much.
I've never had an injury
no
either.
idea where that came from. So a lot of people, you're walking around with it every day and you don't even realize. And my arms are pretty equal, which is kind of shocking because you always feel you're stronger with probably your dominant side. But my arm strength in my arms was, hardly any difference. And my legs was like this massive difference.
Well, and what's funny too is I'm right-handed, right-footed, but my left leg is twice as strong as my right leg almost.
Which is would be totally opposite of what you would normally think.
Yeah, and I think if I had to logically explain it, it's maybe because the left foot is my planted foot for other movements. Right. So if I'm going to kick a ball, I'm going to plant my left leg, which means it needs more strength and stability than my right leg, which needs to move forward and backwards more effectively.
Right, and I think we talked, I'm goofy footed, so everything, all of my right foot is always forward. So
which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well, I might be the goofy footed one actually, being that it's my. Well, no, maybe that's normal.
No, that's right. I do everything with my right foot forward.
I just know I skate goofy.
I do,
or whatever that is. I don't know.
It's usually a right foot forward and you turn to the right, and then the other people when they snowboard will have their left leg forward and they'll turn to the.
Oh yeah, I have my right leg forward when I snowboard.
Oh, you do. Then you are goofy. Yeah.
Goofy dude.
Yeah, it's a goofy.
I'm goofy.
That's a goofy.
I felt it though. I actually went snowboarding for the first time recently. And I felt that my right leg was stressed out the whole time.
Yeah.
And my hips started hurting, actually.
Right, yeah.
Because I do have that imbalance, which I've been addressing for sure. Cool. So I know that problems aren't completely solved. They're never completely solved. But for you, the weight loss is very much manageable now. What does that enable you to do? What is your life like now that you feel like you have control over those things?
Well, having control over your own body, I think, just moves. Having confidence in the things that you can control, like the way that you look and, in a sense, the way you feel, coupling that with just the ability to control breath, and therefore, for instance, a lot of the ways you feel with things like anxiety and things like that, all those things just move out into the world just in your daily life. So I think from there, it really helps you focus on the things that you can control and focusing on those things. Just
master your physical space so that your mental space can become mastered, so that your external space can become mastered.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gleaning off what you're saying. So.
Yeah, and it's a lot less stressful when I've done everything that I can to prepare myself. All these other things are out of my control, because through that process, you've been able to kind of figure out what is in my control, what is not.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the most important things that I learned through that process.
What about you, Dwayne? What is it like now that the problem's being solved? It's not solved. Like, I know we're just kind of beginning to go through some of that back stuff, to be more specific, but you've already seen a few results already in some of our training.
Yeah.
And we've only been at it for
about 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yeah. Time flies.
Yeah. So
you're having a good time.
Yeah.
6
weeks. It's been a struggle, I know, because you had to get pulled out of classes to do this, because I don't want you to be competitive.
Right.
I want to make sure, and we'll start, we'll bleed you back into them, but it's a short time period when you look at the grand scheme.
Yeah. And then when I think of my back injury and how debilitating it was, and how, it totally changed my life for a week to 2 months at a time.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a small time frame to put in to correct the imbalance, to make my life, move forward in what you want to be doing. You want to be moving well, and I feel it when I go to pick something up now.
Yeah.
You just move a lot better. You put a little thought into, I'm going to pick up this object and how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to position myself and what muscles I'm going to activate to do that.
One thing that I think that both of you are actually really focused on, and as well as myself, is somewhat of the mental aspect of life, and making sure that your space kind of helps you get through your life in a thriving sort of way, not a surviving sort of way. So to be a little more concise about what I'm talking about, what does it feel like to know that you're doing the things like in your control, you're controlling the things you can? How much does that free up your headspace to deal with the real problems, or to deal with excelling your career or things like that? Because what I've noticed is that when I have organization, I have my physical fitness down, not overdoing it, not underdoing it, I start excelling in my career by a significant margin.
Right.
When I lack in any one of those areas, my mental space gets cluttered. And I actually end up backing down from those things because I can't do them anymore.
Right. Well, you have to have your head in the right position. In your head first, your body second, and once you get those two in line, then the opportunities or the things, a lot of things in life become a lot simpler for you, because you're in a good spot in your head, and you're in a good spot in your physical abilities and your physical weight and your physical way of moving, which allow the rest of your life to become way better.
And I think about the common goals that people have is always like this body this body thing, right? Where it's like, oh, I wish I was more fit. I wish those are always in the top 5 for people, it seems like. And it's like, well, what if that wasn't an issue? What replaces it in your top
what can
5?
be the second thing I
Right?
can do?
Yeah.
Well, now I've got 1 and 2 done. So
Yeah.
now I'm going to focus on
Exactly.
3.
1 and
What's
2
3?
is taken care of.
I'm going to take care of my family. I'm going to take care of my
Yeah.
work. I'm going to
A lot of people
focus on
forget
these
that.
other things.
I mean, a lot of people, I think, forget that if you could get that down and it's no longer like cluttering up your mind,
Right.
it's going to open doors
Right.
that are unrelated to fitness
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah.
It's like making those decisions that eliminate all the other decisions. You've made those decisions to come in the morning, to do your workout, to eat the right food, to take care of yourself. And once those decisions are made, then you can have
Now you can make
work on the
decisions.
others. Yeah, you can work on the things that really are a decision that or other issues that you might be having.
I guess to wrap things up, in regards to fitness, if you could put anything on a billboard that might help someone like you, kind of think about yourself in the past, like before the problems are being solved. What would you put on a billboard that you'd want you to see, in the past?
Yeah.
That's
good.
First?
No, please.
The frustration I always have with people is like I tell them like, hey, this CrossFit, yoga, whatever it is, it's like it changed my life. So once I say that to somebody, I'm thinking to myself like, now if somebody told me that something literally changed my life, why wouldn't I at least try it one time?
Yeah.
So, that's kind of my thing. If somebody tells me like, hey, dude, this changed my life, then I would want to think that would.
There's
That
a
would-
potential
yeah, like
that
somebody
it would
would
do
be like,
something for
Man,
you.
this dude, I know
Yeah.
who he is, and he seems like a cool dude. I think
Yeah.
I'll try that just to see what it's about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of like that kind of stuff. Like maybe I was introduced to things that I didn't try because I thought, well,
So how do you want to put that on the billboard? You go,
just try it. I don't know, just do it. No. Is that one taken?
if it helped X, why not try
If it
Y?
changed my life, maybe it can change yours.
Yeah,
I don't know.
okay.
It's just a small thing. Like, hey, just try this. Just go try this for one day and see what you
Yeah.
think of it. I mean, don't right away get your excuses up and say
Maybe
I'm not
try
trying.
something that scares you.
Yeah,
Okay.
something like that.
I would want mine to be along the lines of just knowing how the problems that you're facing now don't have to be the problems that you're facing tomorrow and next week. And just like you're gaining control over the things that you have, the feelings of anxiety or depression or just lack of control. So something along those lines.
Okay.
How do you say that in a few words?
Is it my slogan?
The way you feel today doesn't have to be how you feel tomorrow or something like that,
If you don't feel control, seek help. That's what I see. Because the problem is when people don't have control is they don't know how to get control.
Yeah.
And I've noticed with things when I'm lacking control of something, I like to just get somebody to make me do it. like hire somebody. Like I've literally hired coaches for things that I coach because I find that because I spend so much energy on other people, sometimes I put myself behind and I need somebody to just tell me what to do so I don't have to make that decision for myself.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, the control thing is I would say, if you lack control or if you desire control, seek help.
Yeah, that's good. One thing that just popped into my mind that was always on the wall when I would do rehab for my knee was the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
something along those lines.
You can do
Basically
that.
just like that.
Yeah.
You can control taking one step. Let's take a step right now.
Focus on that one step.
Yeah.
Now there's 9,999 steps.
Right.
Right. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking time out of your evening too. I'm sure it puts
Yeah.
you late.
Yeah.
Instagram handles.
Instagram just
Do you
got
want to
one.
plug it?
Yeah, it's Jake O'Reilly. That's JakeOreilly.co.
All right.
Oh. And mine is D O'Reilly.
Cool. All right. Principia CrossFit.